Okay everyone, let's begin with CSS Flexbox, and in CSS Flexbox we have to understand two most important concepts. The first one is flex container, flex items, and the second one is access. So let's know each of them one by one. First, containers and items. So what is a flex container? Flex container is that HTML element where display is set to flex. In this case, this first div, this is the flex container. And flex items are direct child elements of a container. Okay, and please note the word direct child, because there are multiple child elements inside of this container, but only direct child, this div and this h3, these will be flex items. H1 and H2 will not be flex items. Alright, so it was about containers and item. Let's see access. In Flexbox we have two main axes. First one is main axis and the second one is cross axis. Main axis and cross axis are always perpendicular to each other. If main axis is horizontal, cross axis will be automatically vertical, and if main axis is vertical, cross axis will automatically become horizontal. Okay, so it was about containers, items and access. Next we have flex direction. Flex direction is a very important property because it is applied on flex container and it is used to set the direction of main axis. And there's one thing that I forgot to tell you: all our flex items, everything inside a flex box will be aligned as per the direction of main and cross axis. So it is extremely important to understand the importance of direction of main axis and cross axis, and flex direction is that property which will specify the direction of each of the axes. So I just wanted to imagine a table. So when we set flex direction to row, which is also the default value, then direction of main axis will be horizontal from left to right. Okay, and next if we set flex direction to column, then direction of main axis will change vertically from top to bottom along a column. And if you understand row and column, then you will be automatically able to understand row reverse and column reverse. They are just the opposite. Now that we have understood what are flex containers, flex items, axes, and how to set direction of each of the axes, now it's time to start arranging flex items inside of flex containers. So for arranging items inside a flex container, we have two most important properties. Well, actually there are three, but for now we will be just looking at two. Third one is also included, but it will be after those two. So the first one is justify content and the second one is align items. So first we will see justify content. Justify content is a property which is used to align items along main axis. Okay, so all the items when using justify content will be aligned along the main axis. Okay, so we can have center, space between, space around, flex start, space evenly and flex end. So let's understand center. When we set justify content to center, all the items will be put in the center of the container. Okay, something like this. Next, if we have space between, so all the extra space of the container will be taken and inserted in between flex items. So now these items will be spaced out, something like this. Next we have is space around. Space around, in this I want you to imagine a line in between over here and in center over here, somewhere like this. So this space from here to here. Okay, so these two spaces will be equal. So what it means is that the space around flex item will always be equal. This space equal, this space is equal, this space and this space is also equal. So it is space around. Next we have flex start. As you can see from the diagram itself, it will align all the items in the starting of the container. Similarly, flex end at the end of the container. Next we have is space evenly. So it might be a little tricky to tell the difference between space evenly and space around. Sometimes I also can't tell, to be honest. But space evenly is basically it is used to put all the extra space of the container evenly in between flex items. So this space, this one and this one, these 4 spaces are equal. Okay, so all the space has been taken out and it has been inserted evenly in between these containers. In space around the container, flex item, space around the flex item was equal. This space is not equals to this space, it is only equals to half of that space. That is, only the space around this flex item is equal. So I hope I was able to explain the difference between space around and space evenly. It might take you some time to understand, but that's what it is. This is all about justify content. Justify content is used to align items along main axis, whereas align items is used to align the items along cross axis. So as you can see in this diagram, cross axis is vertical. So if we set align items to center, we can say that this flex item will be aligned in the center vertically. It will be vertically centered, something like this. Next, when align items is set to flex start, which is the default value as well, by the way. So flex items will be set at the starting of the flex container, and similarly when we set it to flex end, items will be pushed down at the end of the flex container basically. So, and by the way, I have just given these 3 values only: center, flex start, flex end, but there are other values as well, but most of the time we will be using these 3 values only. So yes. Okay everyone, now it's time to write some code. Well, actually I have already written this code, but now I'm just going to give you practical example of how things work in a Flexbox. And by the way, this is CodePen. CodePen is an amazing online code editor where we can write out simple HTML, CSS and JavaScript code, play around, have fun, try out new things. A great software, a great piece of software basically. So, and by the way, you will find link to this this code in the description box, so you can always go and check out over there. Fine. So yes, this is our HTML code. You can see we have 1 container and we have 3 items. This one is the container and these are the 3 items. So container, these are some basic styles, but the 2 main properties that we are concerned about is display flex and flex direction set to row. And by the way, because it is default value, so I can get rid of flex direction. We don't need to specify flex direction row because automatically it is set to row. Fine. So now we are going to try out the 2 properties that we just learned: justify content and align items. So first coming is justify content. Let's start with center. So these will be centered horizontally. And by the way, I forgot to tell, because flex direction is set to row, so direction of main axis will be horizontal, something like this, and direction of cross axis will be vertical, something like this. Okay, so justify content has been set to center. Next we have is let's try space evenly. So you will see that this alignment has changed, something like that. And I highly recommend you to please go ahead and try out things on your own, because that is only how you will truly understand like what value will give you what sort of alignment. Okay, so it is extremely important. So next, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show align items. Let's set it to center. So now these will be vertically centered, something like that. Let's put it at the end, something like this. Okay, so this is about, so we have justify content and align items in action. So next what I am going to do is, now I am going to explicitly set flex direction to column. Okay, now we will see that these flex items have been stacked vertically over each other, because direction of main axis is now along the column, because we have set flex direction to column. So now main axis is vertical. Fine. So something like this. Now if I set justify content to center, these will be vertically centered, not like horizontal previously. So it is not ideal to remember justify content as a property to set items horizontally, but it is more ideal to know main axis. What is main axis and justify content will align items along main axis, simple as that. Okay, so in this case these will be vertically centered now, and now if I set align items to center, again it will be horizontally centered because cross axis is now along this. So yes, this is align items. Next let's try out space between. We have not tried space between, so these will be spaced vertically, something like that. So it was a practical demo of direction and alignment. Okay everyone, now it's time for align self, the third property that I was talking about. It turns out that align items is not sufficient enough to meet all the requirements, so that's why we have this third property, align self. Let's say that I want this kind of an alignment where one is at the start, second one is at the center, third one is at the end, and the fourth one stretches all the way from top to bottom. I want this sort of an alignment. So I'm not going to bore you with these slides. I'm just going to jump to the code itself. So yes, this is the code that we have. We are going to start with this. This is our initial arrangement. Now I want this one to give this sort of an alignment. So for that, just some basic overview. This is the container. We have 4 items. These are some basic styles, but yes, here this is the main thing that we are concerned about, flex, right? So yeah, this is and by the way, if you are thinking like what sort of CSS is this, like we have one class called item, second one we have is item -- 1. So basically it is BEM architecture, and if you want to know more about BEM architecture, then I have a complete blog written on BEM architecture, and as a CSS developer you definitely want to check that out. So link will be given in the description box. Go ahead and check that blog post out. So back to align self. This is here we are. So as you can see, align items has been set to center. Okay, so and yes, I forgot to tell you one thing, that these two properties, justify content and align items, these are always applied on the container. We cannot apply these two properties on items because it won't work over there. But it turns out that align self is a property that is always applied on flex items. Let me show you directly with the help of code. So here I have item --1. Okay, so I'm just going to select this this first item with the help of this class. That's why I have item --1. Okay, so I'm going to put align self over here, and I'm going to set it to flex start, something like this, and you will see that it will be aligned on the start. It has overridden this align items property set to center. Okay, so that is the main role of align self. Next we have item 2. Because it is already in the center because of this align items, so I'm not going to touch it. I don't want to put anything else. Let's just put flex end, this third flex item at the end. So for that, item --3, and over here I'm going to set align self to flex end, something like this. So it will come at the end. And next we have this stretch. So how do we make it stretch from top to bottom? For that you will have to understand one thing, that right now I have explicitly set height of each of the item. It has been set to 40 pixel. So right now it is just not going to work, because you know we have one align item, align self property, which is, one second, I'll write this code. Next we have is align self for this also, and we have this value called stretch. But right now it won't work because of this height that we have already specified. We want this to have full height basically. Okay, so all you have to do is, for this item only, this item 4 only, all you have to do is set height to auto like this, and now it will work. Okay, so this is basically a rule. You can memorize it. This is how it works. Now it's time for this very interesting flex property called flex grow. Okay, so flex grow is a property that we can use to make responsive designs very easy for us. Right now you can see that this flex container has some extra space. This is some extra space, and because we have explicitly set width of every flex item to 150 pixel, something like this over here, so these items cannot expand now on their own, but flex grow can make them expand and take up the remaining space of the container. Let me show you directly with code. So here I have this item. I'm just going to select the first item and I'm going to set flex grow to 1. Now you will see that it will expand on its own and it will take the remaining space. All the space will now be taken by this. And about this syntax, flex grow always takes a numeric value. It can be from 0 to some other integer value, but we have something interesting. Let's select the item number 2, okay, and over here I set flex grow to 3. Now you will see something interesting. You will see that the second item has taken up 3 times more space than this one, because we have set here 3. So basically it is basically a ratio, we can say. It will take up 3 times more space than the first one, because it has flex 1 and this one has flex 3. So it is a ratio. And if I set let's say item -3 flex grow to 4, it will take even more space. It will take maximum space now. So this is the main function of flex grow. I hope you have understood it. And by the way, if I set right now it is set to 1, so you will see that its width is more than 150 pixel. You can inspect using browser dev tools and you will see that once again, I don't know, yeah, now it's better. Now you will see that it has a width of 181.5. it is the width, which is not 150, because we have set flex to 1, so it is expanding. And if I set it to 0, it will not expand. It will just stick to 150 pixel only, the initial width that was set. So this was about flex grow. Similar to flex grow, we have this property called flex shrink. Flex shrink will allow our flex items to shrink in space, shrink their width or height in some cases, as we will see after some time. So it will allow flex items to shrink if there is not enough space available for them. So for this example, let us say that I have set maximum width of the container to 500 pixel only, and each of this flex item has a width of 130 pixel. So there is some extra space, because these items take up only 390 pixels, right? So there is some 100 pixel around space available over here as extra. But now let us suppose that I change their width to 250 pixels. So you would have expected that these items would go out of the container, out of the flow, because we have set 250 pixel, and because each of will have 250 pixels, so obviously some of the flex items will go out of the container. But it is not happening, and it is because of flex shrink. By default, flex shrink is always set to 1. Even if we don't specify flex shrink 1, it is automatically set. And this flex shrink 1 is allowing these flex items to shrink their width. It is not 250 pixel now, it is smaller. As you can see in the browser dev tools, you can clearly see like here, if you put your mouse over here, you will see that this dotted rectangle, it represents the actual 250 pixel width. But because we have flex 1 already set by default, so it has shrinked this flex item, and it is actually now of this much width, approximately 158.66 width. So it is because of flex shrink. Fine. So let me show you something interesting. Let's say item 2. I am selecting item 2 and I am specifying flex shrink to 3. So now you will see that it will shrink most, because I have already set flex shrink to 3. So this particular item will shrink 3 times more in comparison to these two. And if I set item -1, if I set flex shrink this one to, let's say, just 2, So now this will also shrink more. This one will shrink more, but this item 2 will shrink the most because we have set it to 3 like this. And just to have some fun, we can also say 3 to flex shrink, let's set it to 10, let's say. So it will reduce its size very much. So this is all about flex shrink. It is basically used to shrink these flex items if they don't have enough space available. So yeah, and yes, one more thing before I actually cut this off. If I set this flex shrink to 0, this item will have 250 pixel now. It will not shrink. These two will shrink only. Okay, it will always have a fixed width of 250 pixel as specified over here. So if you set shrink to 0, it will not shrink. Similarly, if you set flex grow to 0, it won't grow. So like that. Now we have this another property called flex basis. Flex basis, it might be a little tricky to work with, but it is quite straightforward, to be honest, because flex basis is a property that is used to set the initial size of a flex item, and it will always override the width property. As you can see, we have this width already set for each of the flex item, that is 200 pixel, but now I am going to override this width using flex basis. And as I told, flex basis is used to set the initial width of flex item. So that's what it is for. And I'm going to set it to 300 pixel and it will be overridden. Item 1 will now have width of 300 pixel. Even if we want to override flex basis, then we have this one more property which is called min width or max width. So min width, if I say min width to 500 pixel, so it will override this flex basis also. Now it has 500 pixel width. Similarly, we have this another property called max width. And if I set max width to 100 pixel, even though flex basis is 300 pixel, width is 200, it will not be more than 100 pixel. Maximum width that it can have now is 100 pixel only. That's it. Our journey with Flexbox continues and we arrive at this destination called Flex Shorthand. So what it is? Flex Shorthand is a very amazing Flexbox property because it combines 3 flex properties into one: flex grow, flex shrink and flex basis. All these are combined into this one property called flex. Let me show you with this example. Let's select the first item and I'm going to set. Now so far we have been giving flex grow, flex shrink, flex basis, but now we will be using only flex. Okay, so here as I told that there are 3 properties. The first value will always be for flex grow, second value will always be for flex shrink and the third value will always be for flex basis. So yeah, let's give this 1, let's give this 0, 0 and I'm going to give it 300 pixel, something like this. So as you will see that this initial width that has been assigned to it is now 300 pixel, but because we have set flex grow to 1, it has taken up this entire space. And if I remove it, if I set this to 0, you will see that it will have 300 pixel instead of 150 pixel. And if I set this flex shrink to 1, well, it will have no effect as of now, okay, because there is enough space available, so flex shrink cannot be demonstrated. So this is the flex shorthand: flex grow, flex shrink and flex basis. So let's just do a little bit more experiment and see what all things we can do. Flex, now for this item 2 I'm setting the flex flex grow to 4 and let's set flex shrink to 0 and let's give a initial width of how about 500 pixels. So now it will look something like this. I'm going to set it back to 200. Okay, yeah, that's fine. Now you will see that we have this 4, so it will take up the space, it will start taking up space, and because we have set flex shrink to 0, you will see that it will stick to 500 pixel only. Let me show you. Now you will see that so far it has been shrinking because until it reaches 500 pixel it will continue to shrink, but once it reaches this 500 pixel width, because of this flex shrink set to 0, it will not shrink anymore. So something like this, shrinking, shrinking, shrinking. Now it has reached 500 pixel and now it will not shrink. Now only the other two items will shrink. It will hold its width to 500 pixel. So this is flex shorthand, and as I already told, please go ahead and try out things on your own. I cannot cover all the examples. You will have to experiment on your own. Just one last property, I promise, then it will be done. So now we have is flex wrap. Flex wrap is a property that is used to wrap content, wrap the items onto next line if there is some lack of space, like that. So for now I have set this max width to 700 pixel of the container, and each of item has width of 200 pixel. So right now there is some extra space, okay, like that. And now if I, let's say, set it to 300 pixel, so okay, because this flex shrink is set to 1, so I'm going to set flex shrink to 0. I don't want items to shrink, I want them to have their own width, okay. So I'm setting it to 0. Now you will see that items have started to overflow the container, because now they are not shrinking anymore. So, and each of them has width of 300 pixel and the maximum width of container is 700 pixel. So it has overflown basically. Now this is where flex wrap can help us, okay, and flex wrap is a property that is always applied on the container. So flex wrap, I'm going to set this to wrap. You will see that this this one flex item that was overflowing, it has been now shifted to the new line, it has been wrapped onto the next line. So this is flex wrap. And you can also set this wrap to wrap reverse. It will revert this effect, something like this, okay. So you can set it to wrap, you can also set it to no wrap. It will allow this to overflow again, like that, okay. So let's save this, and this is all about flex wrap. Okay everyone, so now we have covered almost all the major properties of Flexbox, and I want to confess that there is one property that I skipped intentionally, and it is align content. Align content, if you want me to tell you a little in brief, so it is used along with flex wrap, okay, but we don't use it that much often. So yes, I think that we can skip it. So these are the most important flex properties, and one of the most important column is applied on, because you have to really be aware where you are applying a particular flex property. Like you cannot apply flex direction or align items on flex items. These properties have to be aligned on container only, then only they will work. Similarly, you cannot apply flex basis or flex grow on container, they won't work. You have to apply them correctly. You will have to remember this, but I think that as you practice more and more, you will learn these things on your own automatically. So now it is important that you play around with CSS Flexbox. Just try out different properties, different values, and see what value of what value of a particular property will give what sort of an alignment. So yeah, it's all about Flexbox.